In The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we learn more about Queen Sonia than any other prior queen in the history of the Zelda series. But while this may be the case, her screen time in comparison to other major characters is still somewhat limited. So it's led to many questions about her role in the overall story. Is it important? Are there any secret meanings? Well, looking everything over, I think so. I think it's pretty significant. And that's what we'll be talking about today.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we are talking about Queen Sonia, her significance to the story, and attempting to explain some hidden meanings of her character. There will be spoilers in this video, but most of the spoilers will have to do with the Tears of the Dragon quest, so if you've beaten that already, you can experience most of this video without ruining the experience for yourself. However, towards the end of the video, we will also be discussing some end of the game moments as well, so please keep that in mind. I will provide another warning before we get to that point, but you have been warned. Now before going further, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. With your help, it just might be possible. And I'll also point out that we are partnering with Tokyo Treat for this particular video. As the name might suggest, they are a company that offers up a number of treats from Japan that are pretty great, so if you want to check it out, it is linked in the description below, but we'll be talking more about that later into the video. With that all said, let's now start getting into the importance of Queen Sonia in Tears of the Kingdom. And I think in order to better understand her significance with the story, I think there's a few things we need to keep in mind. So firstly is the connection of Skyward Sword. So Hidemaru Fujibayashi, the lead director of Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, has kept these games in mind. There are a number of Skyward Sword references throughout both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The goddess statues are all throughout. Its history has not been forgotten. And there are even several references to Fi throughout both the story of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the spirit within the Master Sword. So with this connection in mind, I think it says a lot about Queen Sonia. So given that Queen Sonia is supposedly the first queen of Hyrule, this suggests that this takes place shortly after the events of Skyward Sword, before the monarchy is established. The story of King Rauru and Queen Sonia is the period of time when the monarchy is established. But paying close attention to Queen Sonia herself, she seems to be following similar practices as Princess Zelda from Skyward Sword. Zelda from Skyward Sword was meant to be a mortal that could take on the role of the goddess, and she does somehow become the goddess later into the story, but the main point being is they've established this ritual where they pray and try to establish this connection to the goddess so they can maybe, at some point or another when necessary, have those goddess powers. And you'll even notice that she bears the Triforce upon her forearm, very much like Queen Sonia does. And it's also clear that Queen Sonia has her own powers. She is a sage after all, the Sage of Time. And why is this important? Well, it shows a connection to Princess Zelda from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as well. So in the events of Breath of the Wild, it is shown that this ritual, this tradition of praying to the gods to establish this power of the god, of the Triforce, to have the goddess powers, that is still there. The way Zelda dresses in Breath of the Wild is not too different from how Queen Sonia dresses in Tears of the Kingdom, and also not too far off from how Zelda dressed in Skyward Sword. And also, Zelda from Breath of the Wild bears the Triforce on her forearm too. So the idea that's being suggested here is that there's been this transition that's been passed on from generation to generation, that the Princess or Queen of Hyrule is meant to establish some connection with the gods. But it also helps to strengthen the relationship between Princess Zelda of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild and Queen Sonia. So keeping that in mind, let's also consider other events from Breath of the Wild. It is said in Breath of the Wild that the Queen of Hyrule, Zelda's mother, passed away when she was young. And it's implied that she struggles internally because of this throughout her growth. And it's even said that had she had her mother to guide her, she might have been able to better establish her powers, which she struggles with in the story of Breath of the Wild until right before Link would be killed during the Calamity. Urbosa was a very close friend with the Queen of Hyrule before she passed, And Urbosa even inherited the knack for nicknaming Zelda her little bird because that's what her mother used to call her. And we can get a great sense of their relationship when we see Zelda sleeping on her shoulder in one of the memories of Breath of the Wild. This shows that Zelda looked up to Urbosa, and Urbosa took on a bit of a maternal role for her. She was the closest thing she had to a mother figure since her mother passed away. But Urbosa also passes away during the Great Calamity. Still, in the events of Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda does not have a motherly figure in her life. And I believe this is important when it comes to Zelda meeting Queen Sonia. Throughout the different memories we see of Queen Sonia, we get to see how considerate she is, how observant she is, and just how caring she is for Princess Zelda. She seems to be astutely aware of what's going on within her. During the memory when they were having tea time, a lot transpires here. We get to see really well how Queen Sonia can read Zelda and can see her inner turmoil. But it also shows Queen Sonia guiding and teaching Zelda how to use her powers. Which is interesting when you consider the events of Breath of the Wild, how it's explained how Zelda needed her mother to guide her to learn her powers then. So here we have Queen Sonia taking on that role. And also point out in an earlier scene, Sonia does say that they share a blood connection. Which makes sense since Queen Sonia is the first in the line of royalty, and Zelda is the last, and all of these traditions of praying to the goddesses to establish that power have maintained throughout the generations. They are family. Queen Sonia is something like a great to the great exponent grandmother for Princess Zelda. So she's taking on a motherly-like role is what I am arguing here. We even see that she has a keen interest in what may be Zelda's love life with Link. She talks about how Zelda wants to get back to Link to ease his mind, and also how she would like to meet him someday. Very much how an understanding mother would be of their daughter and who they might be in love with. Now I know there are many that argue the relationship status of Link and Zelda, but it's pretty clear that there is something important between them. Even in Breath of the Wild, Cass has a story that strongly implies that Zelda was in love with Link, if the memories of both games do not make that clear. This memory, where they were enjoying tea time, really gave us a lot of details on their relationship. But there is something this tea time was lacking, and that's snacks, or treats, perhaps, from Tokyo Treat. So Tokyo Treat sent me this box, this snack box, and I got to try it out, so thank you very much for Tokyo Treat for sending this over to me. And let me tell you, I was actually very impressed with this. This month's snack box is themed after Okinawa seaside snackin'. And when I opened up the box, let me tell you, the aroma that came from this box was potent, but in a very good way. It was very sweet and alluring. And I was quite surprised with how much different snacks and treats they had packed into this box. The first thing I tried, because it just smelled so good, was this bag of Kit Kats cookies and cream, a flavor I had not had before, and, well, they tasted pretty darn good, as you might expect from a cookies and cream flavored Kit Kat. But there were also a lot of other treats I hadn't had anything like before. For example, the Okinawa brown sugar fugashi. This treat was strange, but in a good way. The best way I can describe it is kind of like eating a snack bar that's made of styrofoam, which may not sound very good at first, but it's the kind of styrofoam that feels like you can eat it and it melts in your mouth and it's extremely sweet. This might have been my favorite treat within the snack box, but there are other things that I enjoyed. Really, I enjoyed everything in the box. It was all very good. But another standout treat for me was this bag of chips, the Koikea salted caramel chips. Now, when I was reading this little booklet it comes with that describes all the different treats and snacks, so you have like a guide in terms of taking all these different things in case you don't know how to read Japanese, which I don't, so this was very helpful. I noticed that this bag, it said, may contain traces of egg, shrimp, and crab. And I have a little bit of a shrimp allergy that I've developed in the last few years, so I had some level of concern here, and I ended up eating the whole bag. Nothing happened, so I was totally fine, and it was very good. It was the really nice combination of sweet and salty. I haven't had anything quite like it before, but if I had to give it a comparison, Maybe like a slightly less salty, more sweet version of barbecue chips. But overall, I was very impressed with the snack box. It lasted me a few days and I was eating a number of treats for a few days. There's a decent amount of stuff here. It's definitely dense with goodies. So if this kind of snack box might interest you, definitely check out the link in the description below. I'll point out that right now there is a code that you can use, Bounty. If you put that in, you will get a number of One Piece merchandise. I'm actually a huge fan of One Piece. There's apparently over like $75 worth of One Piece merchandise here, depending on which package you get. But check it out, it's linked in the description below. There are different monthly plans. You get a different themed snack box every month. And if you decide to do so, it will help out the channel. But now back to the video. So we've established that Queen Sonia is taking on a motherly-like role to Princess Zelda, something that she's been lacking. And she's even helping her to guide her powers. But the relationship goes a bit beyond this. In the memory where Ganondorf steals the stone from Sonia right beforehand when they are dealing with Puppet Ganon, we see Sonia and Zelda working together, fighting together. There's a trust level here. Their bond is strong, and Queen Sonia has helped to train Zelda with her powers. She now knows how to use Recall very well. But this is the scene where Queen Sonia is mortally wounded. In a prior memory, we see that Ganondorf fixates himself on the stone of Queen Sonia and even remarks how King Rauru married a Hylian woman, which was all foreshadowing for when Ganondorf would fool Zelda and Sonia with Puppet Ganon and attack her from behind. And this was a brutal moment. They just basically straight up killed Queen Sonia. And while at first it's not clear if she's going to die, it's made clear in a later memory when Rauru is grieving for her with her grave and there is a Sundaline left over. And I think the Sundaline has special meaning. It is a flower at a grave, which a lot of us understand. That's how a lot of us grieve and try to pay homage to those who have departed. But I believe this is another connection between Queen Sonia and Zelda. So the Sundaline represents the tragedy of Queen Sonia, but the Silent Princess, which was the important flower from Breath of the Wild, is what represents the struggles of Princess Zelda. And in Tears of the Kingdom, at the end of the Tears of the Dragon quest, when we learn that Zelda swallows the secret stone in order to become the Light Dragon for seemingly eternity, at the end of that memory, we see a whole bunch of silent princesses, and we learn that the tears of the Light Dragon are what all the memories are. Tears throughout the kingdom, the tears of the kingdom. So losing Queen Sonia in the memories of Tears of the Kingdom was a tragedy. It was something very sad for the overall kingdom. And this sadness that Zelda has, not for just losing Queen Sonia, but also for the struggles of having to give up her own future away from Link and all the people of Hyrule, leads to the tears of the kingdom. There is a comparison there. But the story of Queen Sonia doesn't quite end there. And this is where I will give you one last spoiler warning, because we will be talking about the end of the game. So in the end of the game, once Link defeats Ganondorf and the Demon Dragon, the spirits of both King Rauru and Queen Sonia come together to help restore Princess Zelda. And I've talked about in prior videos how I think that this is actually foreshadowed throughout the game, but some feel that this is a bit of a plot contrivance. But when you consider that there is this bond between Queen Sonia and Zelda, alongside Rauru as well, they both cared about her, they took on parental roles for her when she was in the past. And they also talked about how they wanted to meet Link in the future. And while Rauru got to meet Link earlier on, this is the only time Sonia gets to actually meet Link. She finally does. And then King Rauru and Queen Sonia combine their powers alongside Link to do what I believe is a large-scale recall. We see the golden particles, we see Link's hand be restored. So ultimately not just restore that, but Zelda herself from these years and years of being the Light Dragon. Which is not only fitting because they showed an example in an earlier memory where they can combine their powers, and also not just because Queen Sonia wanted to meet Link at some point in the future, but also because Queen Sonia is the one that trained Zelda on how to use her recall powers, which ultimately is what enabled the recall powers to be extended to Link in this current time, and they're combining all that together to bring Zelda back now. It's full circle. Rauru and Sonia were family to Zelda. They helped to guide and strengthen her. And this is made clear by what Zelda says to Link when she comes to, how she's met so many wonderful people, how she has so much to say to Link. So essentially, the significance of Queen Sonia is that she's meant to prop up Princess Zelda, to strengthen her, be a loving figure for her, and also to symbolize the tragedy that leads to the very title of the game, the Tears of the Kingdom. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's more to the significance of Queen Sonia? Do you have other ideas? Are there other things you noticed about her character? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.